Welcome back everybody to the channel. This is your boy Mikael here, and today we're going to talk about an important topic if you want to succeed in business and in your startup called pivots, aka pivoting. What is pivoting? Very simple. You're going in a certain direction, and at some point you realize this direction is not going to succeed, right? What do? You just keep going there and you fall down the cliff? No, you reorient yourself. That means you're pivoting to a new direction. Now, pivots require a lot of nuance because you could be pivoting not enough or too much. If you've seen in my previous video, we've talked about the 4 fits canvas, right? Market, product, channel, model. How you make the money, who you sell it to, what's the product, where you get the customer. We'll do a video on channels in the future. So as soon as I'm changing one of those, the whole 4 fits canvas gets changed. Because if I change the market, then my market product fit is different. And my model market fit is different. So as soon as one of these 4 that you established doesn't prove to work, which is going to happen a lot. Let's say you thought that using a certain channel, you would get customer. And then you have a good product, you're in a good market, you have a good business model, but you're not getting customers. So you realize, okay, my channel is not working. But now with the new channel you're going to create, now maybe your model is not going to work. Same thing with your product. Now that you're bringing in different type of people, you might have to change your product to fit better to their needs, etc. So pivoting is something that you're going to have to learn, and it's a gut feeling thing. You're just going to have to spend time with your idea, with your project, and realize, are we going in the right direction here? Every big major company had a pivot. Why? Because when you're building your startup, it's like you're walking in the dark. You're climbing a mountain with a bunch of fog. It's foggy outside. You can't see past 1 meter, and you're just climbing the mountain. And at some points, you're going to arrive in some dead ends. And so you're going to have to backtrack your steps and find a new way up the mountain. And that is what a pivot is. You have to get into the mindset that a pivot is positive. A pivot is not negative. It feels like you're going backward. Don't be hard on yourself if you have to pivot and you're losing time. It's a completely natural process. Now, on the other extreme, you might pivot too much. You might be just thinking about an idea, and then, oh, you get a new idea, and then you change the idea, and then, oh, you're thinking about a new design, and you change this. Instead of just taking one idea, and as we explained yesterday in the scope video, you take the idea, you scope it appropriately, you give yourself a milestone and a deadline, and you execute it. And then you test it. Pivoting should always happen after user testing. You shouldn't be just pivoting ideas all the time. You should stick to one idea, scope it as small as possible, test it, and then see the results. And most of the time, you're going to have to pivot your idea in one of these 4 fits. The key with pivoting is understanding what did you do wrong. If you went up the mountain and there was data you didn't have, and then you end up having to backtrack and change your route, you have to understand what went wrong in your analysis so that you don't keep making the same mistakes. The goal would be that you pivot less and less as time goes on. You could do major pivots in the beginning, but the more, for example, if you're doing a software, the more your software is being built, the more expensive it is to pivot. Because all the code that has been written is going to need to be modified, and it's almost harder to modify code than to create new code. Now, the cycle for pivoting will always be the same. You have an idea. First thing you do, you're going to build a product or a service. So notice, pivoting doesn't happen between the idea and building the product. You have an idea, you set the scope, and you do it. Once you've built the product, you're going to measure how people react to it. Testing. Then you're going to learn, good or bad. And this is where you're going to decide, okay, should we pivot or should we persevere in the same direction? This is always going to be the cycle you're going to go through. And even if you persevere in the same direction, you're going to have more ideas, meaning you're going to pivot some smaller elements of the features or the design. Sometimes your product is actually good, but the way to get there is not viable. Either your scope is too big or your customer acquisition doesn't make sense. It's not scalable. It costs too much money. There could be a billion reasons. It takes too much time, right? You don't have the skill, etc. So you're going to have to pivot in your ways to achieving your vision. You're not always just pivoting on the vision itself or the product itself. You're most of the time going to be pivoting on how you're going to build a team, how much money you're going to put into it. Okay, you're mostly going to pivot on your smaller mountains. You're trying to get to your end goal, which can remain the same, but the way to get there is going to be kind of crazy. And that's just something you have to expect. Always remember, the customer is always right. If people don't respond to your product, don't be stubborn, man. All right? If people don't respond to your product, you're either the one communicating bad or you're the one that just made a shitty product. You got to make a product that is cool, and you got to solve a problem. You got to provide a solution that is easy to use, it makes sense, and you got to communicate it and present it in a nice way. In the same way that you could be the nicest guy or girl in the world, okay? But if you are not able to communicate, if you are not able to present yourself in a decent image, okay? It just means you're taking showers, you're cleaning your clothes, right? You don't need to wear expensive brands or, go to the barber every 2 weeks, right? But it's just like keeping yourself clean, making sure your fingernails are all right, making sure your desk is clean. I'm telling you, it's not about money. You don't need the greatest setup, you don't need the greatest microphone, and you don't need the greatest clothes and everything, right? Just make an effort to present yourself properly. A product is the same way. You could have the coolest idea for a product ever, but if you don't market it properly, if you don't brand it properly, if you don't communicate it in a simple way that is easy to understand, people are not going to give it a chance. If you go at the library, there's 100,000 books. Do you open every book and go through all the pages of all the books? No, you just look at the titles. You see a title that seems cool, right? The brand is nice and it communicates a message that interests you. And you look at a few pages and most of the time not even buy it. Applications and products and startups are the same things. There's a million startups. Nobody cares about your startups. You gotta somehow get in their face and show, look, this is actually really good for you. Just try it 5 minutes. Almost like you're begging them to use it 5 minutes. And then they'll tell you if it's good or bad. If it's bad, you gotta pivot. And if it's good, you gotta persevere and keep upgrading it. That's what pivots are for. So in conclusion, be ready to pivot, but don't pivot too much. Don't pivot on ideas, pivot on results. I know we're getting into more complicated subjects as the days goes by. Yesterday was scope, today's pivoting, and we're gonna keep raising the difficulty because these are concepts and nuances you really need to understand. If you follow me through the 30 days, I promise you at the end of the 30 days, you're gonna be way better equipped to actually succeed. The question I want to ask you is, are you committed 100%? Are you committed to do everything in your power to achieve success in your startup? If the answer is yes, you're going to have to lower your ego, you're going to have to take notes, be ready to learn, and you're going to have to focus on execution. Execution is our new best friend. We're done with ideas. I want you to take all the ideas you have in all your books and create a scope, execute it, and then decide if you're going to pivot or not. This is the new way we're going to work. Every month, you got to show me something tangible. If you're not sending me something tangible on WhatsApp every month, showing me the actual progress of your startup, you're still in woo-woo land. We're getting out of woo-woo land together and into actual success. As much as the process is quite painful to get out of dreamland and putting down the work and killing 99% of your ideas, because 99% of your ideas needs to be killed. They're too complicated, they're too costly, they're too big, or people don't care about them. If you're watching this video, you got a low kernel, you got a 1% of your ideas that are actually good, and I want you to execute on those. Make the world better. So stay locked in with me. will make sure that you accomplish these goals, that you accomplish your milestones, and that you become successful in your startup. If you need any help, if you want feedback, if you want tips, if you want me to look at your project or your pitch deck, if you want to join in on my startup, contact me +1 438 308 9922 on WhatsApp. I got you back for life. See you tomorrow.
You look so sweet and you're so